Hi everyone, this story begins the way many viral truths do. Softly, invisibly, with power hidden behind silence. Before we dive deep, take a moment to like this story, subscribe for more unforgettable narratives, and welcome to Black Queen Dominion, where dignity always outlives disrespect. She lived on the third floor of an aging apartment building that most people passed without a second glance. The paint along the stairwell peeled in tired curls, and the elevator hummed with a voice older than anyone who wrote it. To the outside world, it looked like just another struggling building in a city that had long forgotten how many dreams it once housed. To her neighbors, it was a place of comparison, hierarchy, and judgment. To her it was simply home. She chose the smallest unit on purpose. A one-bedroom apartment with narrow windows and a modest kitchen that caught the afternoon sun just right. She liked the way the light settled on the wooden floor, how it reminded her that peace did not need to be loud. Her lifestyle was simple by design, not by limitation. She dressed neatly, spoke kindly, and never offered more information about herself than necessary. She believed privacy was power. The neighbors, however, believed appearances were everything. They watched her come and go with grocery bags instead of luxury shopping bags. They noticed she didn't host parties or arrive home in flashy cars. They assumed her silence meant insignificance. In a building full of people desperate to feel above someone else, she became the easiest target. Whispers traveled faster than the elevator. Assumptions hardened into certainty. They believed she was barely getting by, that she rented the smallest place because that was all she could afford. They believed she should feel lucky just to be there. None of them knew she had signed the deed years before, quietly, without ceremony. None of them knew the building was hers, not inherited, not gifted, but earned through years of discipline, sacrifice, and strategic patience. She had built her wealth far from that neighborhood, in boardrooms and investment meetings where her presence alone challenged expectations. She learned early that power revealed too soon invited unnecessary resistance. So she waited. She listened. She observed. The building had become a social ecosystem of unspoken rules. Certain floors were considered superior. Certain tenants behaved as if their rent bought them status, not just shelter. And then came the night that shifted everything. A gathering spilled through the hallway one evening, laughter echoing too loudly, shoes scuffing the walls. Guests filled the common space, turning the building into a stage. She returned home quietly as she always did, moving through the noise without drawing attention. But attention found her anyway. Eyes followed her. Judgments formed instantly. Her small apartment, her calm demeanor, her refusal to perform wealth made her an easy subject for humiliation. The energy in the hallway changed. Smiles sharpened. Superiority settled comfortably on faces that had no idea how temporary it was. She felt it all without reacting. Years of navigating hostile spaces had taught her the value of restraint. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and closed it gently behind her. Inside, the apartment was serene. Books lined the shelves. Documents rested in a locked drawer. The truth lived quietly there, waiting. That night she sat by the window and looked out at the city lights. Every floor beneath her feet represented an investment, a responsibility, a promise she had made to herself never to let ego lead her decisions. She knew what the neighbors thought. She knew what they said when she wasn't around. And she knew the moment would come when silence would no longer serve her. The humiliation she experienced was not loud, but it was intentional. It planted a seed. And that seed, once planted in the mind of a woman who owned everything she stood on, was not something to ignore. She went to bed that night with clarity instead of anger. The kind of clarity that only comes when patience has reached its limit. The kind that transforms quiet strength into deliberate action. The building slept unaware. The neighbors rested comfortably in assumptions that would soon collapse. And she, the quiet tenant in the smallest apartment, prepared to remind everyone that power does not always announce itself. Morning returned to the building like it always did, routine and unremarkable. Doors opened. Footsteps echoed. Coffee brewed behind thin walls. Life continued under the same unspoken hierarchy the residents had created for themselves. But beneath that surface normalcy something had shifted. She moved through the day with the same calm presence, but her mind was active. Every assumption made about her had been carefully noted over time. She had watched how people treated her differently depending on what they believed she owned. Respect in that building was transactional, and she had chosen not to buy into it. The humiliation from the night before lingered, not as pain but as confirmation. Confirmation that silence had done its job long enough. Confirmation that the truth, once revealed, would not need embellishment. It would land with full weight. The building's management system was outdated, a relic from before she purchased the property. She had kept it that way intentionally, allowing the illusion of distant ownership to remain intact. Rent payments flowed into accounts that never bore her name publicly. Repairs were approved through intermediaries. Everything was designed to keep her invisible. But invisibility had a cost. It allowed people to believe they were untouchable. She reviewed tenant records that afternoon, not out of spite but out of responsibility. Late payments, repeated complaints, patterns of entitlement. She saw clearly what others refused to examine, the way power, even imagined power, shaped behavior. Her neighbors continued their lives, unaware they were being observed with precision. They complained about rent increases without knowing who had held the rates steady for years. They criticized management without realizing the patience behind every decision. They mocked what they believed was weakness, not recognizing restraint. She remembered where she came from. A childhood where resources were limited but discipline was abundant. A journey where she learned that true wealth was built quietly, brick by brick, without seeking validation. The building was not just an investment. It was a symbol of everything she had survived and achieved. The decision she faced was not whether to reveal the truth, but how. Public humiliation had created a public stage. And stages, she knew, demanded timing. She would not react emotionally. She would respond strategically. The building would continue functioning normally, but subtle changes would begin. Policies would be enforced consistently instead of selectively. Late fees would no longer be waived casually. Maintenance requests would follow procedure instead of favoritism. Nothing cruel. Nothing illegal. Just structure, applied equally. She understood something her neighbors did not. Accountability feels personal when privilege has gone unchecked. As days passed, frustration began to ripple through the building. Tenants who had once felt comfortable bending rules found doors closing politely but firmly. Emails were answered with professionalism instead of indulgence. The environment shifted and no one could quite explain why. Still, they did not look at her. They did not suspect her. She remained the quiet woman on the third floor, living in the smallest apartment, carrying groceries instead of status symbols. Their blindness was complete. She waited. Because the truth, when it finally arrived, would not come as a confrontation. It would come as a realization. And realization, unlike humiliation, has no volume control. The foundation had been laid. The weight of assumptions was about to become too heavy for the building to carry. The moment came not through drama but through documentation. A routine notice was scheduled to be posted in the building. An administrative update regarding ownership confirmation for legal compliance. It was a formality required by the city, nothing unusual. But for the tenants, it became the axis on which their understanding of reality turned. She authorized the notice herself. The paper was simple. Visual. Clear. It listed the legal owner of the building, the managing authority, and the contact information for all formal matters. Her name appeared there, printed without emphasis, without explanation. Just truth. By the afternoon, the hallway buzzed with confusion. People stopped mid-step. Phones came out. Whispers sharpened into disbelief. The quiet tenant's name echoed in minds that had never bothered to learn it properly. She felt none of the rush they did. For her, the truth had always existed. It was simply stepping into the light. She walked through the building that evening with the same calm pace she always had. But the air had changed. Eyes followed her differently now. Not with dismissal but with calculation. Respect tried to rearrange itself retroactively. Discomfort settled where confidence once lived. There were no speeches. No explanations. She did not need to justify her choices or defend her silence. Ownership did that for her. The humiliation from before now echoed back on those who had delivered it. Every mocking glance, every whispered assumption returned as a quiet reckoning. They understood finally that the person they had belittled controlled the ground beneath their feet. She did not enjoy their discomfort. That was never the goal. Power used for ego rots quickly. Power used for clarity endures. That night she returned to her apartment, still the smallest one, still exactly as she liked it. Ownership had not changed her lifestyle, only the lens through which others viewed it. and that she knew was their burden to carry. The building slept again, but this time it slept differently. Awareness has a way of changing the weight of walls. The weeks that followed were defined by adjustment. Tenants learned what consistency felt like. Rules applied evenly. Deadlines mattered. Courtesy replaced entitlement. The building became quieter not because people spoke less but because they listened more. She oversaw everything with professionalism, never personalizing what had once been personal. Rent payments arrived on time now, each one a reminder of the structure she had built and maintained. There was no revenge in the traditional sense. No eviction sprees, no dramatic punishments. The true reckoning was internal. Neighbors confronted their own behavior in the mirror of reality. They realized how easily they had judged, how confidently they had dismissed someone based on space and silence. The building became a lesson they lived inside every day. She remained present but distant, approachable but firm. Respect returned, not demanded but earned through consistency. The environment improved. Maintenance was proactive. Communication became clear. The building, once divided by ego, began functioning as a community. She watched it all with measured satisfaction, not pride but purpose. This was what ownership meant to her. Stewardship, not dominance. Time passed, and the story of the building became one people told carefully. The quiet tenant who owned everything. The woman whose silence carried weight. The lesson lingered long after the embarrassment faded. She never moved into a larger unit. Never renovated for spectacle. Her power was not in display but in stability. She had proven what needed proving without raising her voice. The neighbors learned something invaluable. Wealth does not announce itself and dignity does not require permission. Assumptions once exposed lose all authority. She continued living exactly as she chose, grounded, intentional, unbothered. The building thrived under her ownership, not because she demanded respect, but because she embodied it. And in that quiet third-floor apartment the Black Queen reigned, not from a throne but from truth.